Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, we would be going through some science concepts on answering experiment-based questions that usually come out in the PSLE examinations. Contrary to the other videos I usually make, I will not be going through any questions today. But I would be uploading more experiment-based questions soon, so do stay tuned. So without any further ado, let's begin. So first of all, let's understand the different type of variables we have in any scientific experiment. The first one we have is changed variables, also known as independent variables. Now these are variables that we usually test for in an experiment, and they are known as independent because these variables do not depend on other factors within the setup. I'll explain that in a while, so if you don't understand, it's completely fine. And by the name changed variable, you understand that in the whole setup, this is that particular variable which is being changed across different setups we have inside the experiment. Now I'll come to that in a while as well. And the second type of variable we have is measured variables, also known as dependent variables. Now these are the variables which are directly affected by the changed variables, and as the name suggests, dependent variable, they are dependent on the independent variable. I'll explain that in a while as well. And the last type of variable we have is controlled variables or factors. Now these are those variables or factors which are kept constant throughout the whole experiment. So for example, let's look at this setup, this example first. How does the amount of exposed surface area of water in contact with the surrounding atmosphere affect the rate of evaporation of water? Okay, so what is the aim of this experiment? The aim is to investigate the correlation between the amount of exposed surface area of water in contact with the surrounding atmosphere and the rate of evaporation of water. So this isn't much of a problem, but first we need to identify what the changed and what the dependent and independent variables are. If you have forgotten, independent is the changed variable and dependent is the measured variable, because the dependent variable is dependent on the independent variable. Now it might sound a bit confusing, but yeah, you'll get the hang of it in a while. So the changed variable is the amount of exposed surface area of water in contact with the surrounding atmosphere. So this is the changed variable, and the measured variable would be, or the dependent variable would be, the rate of evaporation of water. So this is the measured variable. Okay, so I have drawn this experiment over here, and if you see, we have 4 setups: setup 1, 2, 3 and 4, and the contrasting difference between each setup is the shape of the container. And why it is important? This is because it is affecting, or rather it is helping us to change the exposed surface area of water. You see, right? The exposed surface area of the water in contact with the surrounding atmosphere is different in each setup, but the volume of water in each setup is the same. So now when we are talking about the factors affecting rate of evaporation, so we have factors affecting rate of evaporation. Now I'm using ROE for short. You can use this for annotation when you're annotating your questions, but you can't use these acronyms when you're answering your open-ended questions. So just keep that in mind. So factors affecting rate of evaporation. So rate of evaporation is affected by the temperature of the surrounding atmosphere, and the temperature of the surrounding atmosphere and the temperature of the water. The second factor is presence of wind. The third factor is uh, exposed surface area, amount of exposed surface area, sorry. Oops. Amount of exposed surface area, ESA for short, and the humidity of the air, So these are the four main factors affecting the rate of evaporation of water. So rate of evaporation is the measured variable or the dependent variable, and in this case, in the question we have above, the change variable is the amount of exposed surface area of water, right? So the amount of exposed surface area, where is that? That's over here. So this would be our changed variable or the independent variable, right? So in any scientific experiment, if you guys would be knowing that we can only have one changed variable, and the remaining factors or the remaining factors within the setup must remain constant. They cannot be changed, they must be controlled. So now the temperature of the surrounding atmosphere and the water, the presence of wind, I'll use a different color, the temperature, the temperature, the presence of wind, and the humidity of the air, all these three are the controlled variables, because these are the factors or the variables that are being kept constant throughout the whole experiment. Okay, so now that we have understood this, now let us understand the type of setups in a scientific experiment. So in any scientific experiment, we have two types of setups. The first one is an experimental setup, and the second one is a controlled setup. So experimental setups are those setups where we test for the changed variable and obtain the results for the measured variable. Okay, and controlled setups are those setups which, so a controlled setup is exactly same as an experimental setup, ES for short, but they don't have the changed variable. They lack the changed variable, which is the speciality of a controlled setup. And the main purpose of these setups is to compare and confirm that any change in the measured variable is solely due to the changed variable and not any other external factor. So now we'll come back to the same setup which I explained to you previously. So over here, all setups are placed in the same environment. So what does this mean? Same environment means the temperature of the surrounding atmosphere and water is the same. So this is okay. The presence of wind is same for all setups, and the humidity of the air is also the same for all setups. The only thing that we are changing is the amount of exposed surface area of water, as highlighted in white. So now the experimental setups would be setups 1, 2 and 3. Why? This is because in each setup we have in each setup 1, 2 and 3 we have a changed variable, which is the amount of exposed surface area of water. I'll write it down. And we have a measured variable, which is the rate of evaporation. But if we look at setup 4, we have something that's out of the box, something that's startlingly strange. And the thing is that we have this container is sealed. We have this container as sealed. So if this container is sealed, this water over here is not in direct contact with the external atmosphere. So what this does is this reduces the amount of exposed surface area of water in contact with the external surrounding atmosphere to 0, since this water, as explained before, since this water is not in contact with the external surroundings, the external atmosphere. So when the amount of exposed surface area is reduced to 0, what do we have? We lack a changed variable, right? And the main purpose of removing this changed variable, the main purpose of sealing this container, is to ensure that any change in the any change in the rate of evaporation of water is solely due to the amount of exposed surface area of water in contact with the surrounding atmosphere, and not any other external factor. So which is the main reason why we sealed the container. So our setup 4 becomes the control setup, whereas setup 1, 2 and 3 are the setups 1, 2 and 3 are the experimental setups. So so that was it for this video. I hope you guys found this walkthrough quite helpful, and if you did, don't forget to hit the like button, and please do subscribe to my channel, plus click the notification button so that you are notified whenever I post a new video. Other than that, please do help me achieve my goal of helping as many people as possible by sharing these videos to other people you know, so that even they can benefit. If you have any doubts or any questions, like always, feel free to put them down in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer them. So do stay tuned for my next videos, and till then, goodbye.